Hey guys, so in this video I wanted to go over our test review that you received Friday. So in the first section, we are asked to use the picture below to identify the special name for the angle pairs. So for the first one, we are asked for angle 2 and angle 6. So if we come in here, the angles that we are looking for is angle 2 and angle 6. So in this case, what we are looking at is line A is our transversal, and our two parallel lines is N and M. So because 2 and 6 are on the same side of our transversal, one is on the inside of our parallel lines, in between our N and our M line, and one is on the outside of our parallel lines, which is our angle 2. So because they're on the same side, one's inside and one's outside of the parallel lines, these are corresponding angles. So for number 1, this would be corresponding angles. For number 2, we are asked angle 1 and angle 11. So let's erase what we've already got. So angle 1 and angle 11. So in this one, we are looking at our side or line A and our line B as our parallel lines, and line N is acting as our transversal. So if we kind of turn our screens a little bit, angle 1 and angle 11 are on opposite sides of the transversal, which is N in this case. So they're going to be alternate, and then both of them are on the outside of our parallel lines. So on the outside of our A, outside of our B. So they're not in between our parallel lines. So they're going to be alternate exterior angles. So for number 2, you can abbreviate and put alternate exterior angles. So for number 3, we were asked angle 9 and 10. What are we looking at for 9 and 10? So let's go ahead and erase what we've got. On your test, I would erase everything so you can look at just one case at a time, or one problem at a time. So angle 9 and angle 10. For this one, we really don't have to look at what is parallel, what is the transversal like the other two that we have done. We are simply looking at the fact that these two angles put together create a straight line. So if we start over here at angle 9, go all the way around, including that angle 10, creates a straight line. If two angles create a straight line, or add together for 180 degrees, which is a straight line, it is supplementary angles. So for number 3, again, we can abbreviate and say that they are supplementary angles. So for 4 is 11 and 13 angles. So let's look at angle 11 and 13. Again, I would erase it. We're looking at 11 and 13. So in this case, our transversal is line B, and our parallel lines are N and M. So both angles 11 and 13 are on the inside of our parallel lines. One is on the right side of our transversal, one is on the left side. Again, that transversal in this case is at line B. So because they're on the inside, they're going to be interior, and they're on opposite sides, so they're going to be alternate. So alternate interior angles. Another way to remember the interior word is think about interior designer. Interior designer designs the inside of the house, not the outside. So for number 4, we have alternate interior angles. And then lastly, number 5, we are looking at angles 14 and 16. So if we erase all of our work from number 4, we have angle 14 and 16. So again, in this situation, we don't really care which one's parallel or the parallel lines or the transversal. Simply need to know that these are opposite of each other of an intersection of the lines. So if they're opposite of each other of an intersection, they are going to be vertical angles. Vertical angles, again, because they are opposite of each other of one intersection of lines. So number 5 is vertical angles. So again, if I go too fast during this video, please pause the video so you can write it down, or if you want to practice and then check your work, that is fine as well. So then we move on to the next section. The next section we are asked to find the missing values for x, y, and z, given this figure to the right. So first thing I would start with is finding the value y. Value y is found down here at 3y. And how we can solve it is taking this 72, or this angle measurement 72, and realizing together they create a straight line. Because they create a straight line, I know that they are supplementary to each other. So I can do 3y plus my 72, and they're going to equal 180 degrees. Again, straight line. So I'm going to move my 72 over. So I'm going to subtract 72, and I'm going to cancel out my 72s, and I get 3y equals 108. I can divide by 3 on both sides, and I get y equals 36. So that is going to be my first value that I was looking for. Now you can do different options. You either can see that this angle down here, which was 3y, and the angle up here, that is x, are corresponding angles, and they are going to be congruent of each other because they're corresponding angles. Another way you can look at it is that this angle, this x, and these 72 are consecutive interior angles. If you know the definition of consecutive interior angles, you know that these two angles are supplementary of each other. So either way you want to do it. So in my notes, I went with the fact that xy, or 3y, and x were corresponding angles, so I can set them equal to each other. So 3y equals x. Well, I know my y is 36, so I can substitute that in. I simplify, and my left side is 108, so my x has to equal 108 degrees. So my x is 108 degrees. And if you want to put your degrees, that's fine. Alright. So now lastly we have to solve for z. So my z is going to come from using the x that we just found. If you look at this as our line here that I'm drawing on is one of our parallel lines. Here's another parallel line, and the line that is going through it is our transversal. Our angle x and our angle 3z plus 18 are corresponding angles, so they are going to be congruent of each other. So we're going to have 3z plus 18. Let me change my color. Three z plus 18 equals x. Well, we already solved for x, so we have 3z plus 18 equals 108. We're going to subtract 18 from both sides, and we get 3z equals 90. We're going to divide both sides by 3 to get z by itself. We end up with z equals 30. So that would be our z. So there are answers for the second section. All right, next section, we are told to find the values according to the figures to the right. Number 1 and 2 are for figure 1. Numbers 3, 4, and 5 are for figure 2. So let's tackle figure 1 first. So let's look at our x's first. We are given consecutive angles. When I say consecutive angles, there is no angle in between the two. So if they're consecutive angles, they are supplementary. That means we can add the two together. So 6x plus 8x plus 40 and set it equal to 180. We're going to combine like terms. So we get 14x plus 40 equals 180. We're going to subtract 40 from both sides. So we get 14x left on the left side equals 140. We're going to divide 14 on both sides to get x by itself. Get x equals 10. So there is one of our values for number 1. Now for my y's for figure 1, we also have another set of consecutive angles. Again, consecutive angles are supplementary. The reason why these two are consecutive is because there's no angle in between them. So we can add these two angles together and set them equal to 180. I'm going to combine like terms, so I have 10y minus 10 equals 180. I'm going to add 10 to both sides to get 10y by itself, and I get 190. I'm going to divide both sides by 10 to get y by itself, and I get y equals 19. So that is my answer for number 2. And then we move on to figure 2. So for figure 2, we are no longer looking at angles, we are only looking at sides. So if they are opposite sides, they are going to be congruent. So for the first set of opposite sides, or first pair of opposite sides, we have 3x minus 3 equals x plus 7. So we're going to set it equal to each other. I'm going to move my x over by subtraction. And because I'm moving my x's over to the left side, I've got to move my constant over to the right. So I'm going to add 3 on both sides. My x minus x cancels out. And on the left side, I have 3x minus 3, or 3x minus x, which equals 2x. Then looking at my constants, I have negative 3 plus 3, which cancels out. And on the right side, I have 7 plus 3, which is 10. I divide by 2 on both sides, and I get x equals 5. So for number 3, I'm asked what is x equal, and I get 5. Then I have my other two sets, or other pair of opposite sides. So my y plus 2 and my 2y minus 6 are opposite of each other, so they are congruent. Y plus 2 equals 2y minus 6. I'm going to move my positive y over. They cancel out. On the right side, I just have y left. Because I moved my y's over to the right side, I've got to move my constants over to the left. So I'm going to add 6 on both sides. Negative 6 plus 6 cancels out. I'm left with 8 on the left side. So my y value is 8. Now, the last one asks for the perimeter of the figure. That means I have to substitute in my x and my y value to find the perimeter of this figure. So if we come back in here, I personally would substitute the x value in for x plus 7. So let's change colors back. So now we would have 5 plus 7, which gives us 12. So if this side is 12, the opposite side also is 12. So we can ignore this 3x minus 3. Now looking at the other side, we have y plus 2. Well, y is 8, so we have 8 plus 2, which is 10. So we don't have to look at anything else. Also on the other side, or opposite side, instead of 2y minus 6, we simply have 10. So to figure out what the perimeter is, we have 10 plus 10 plus 12 plus 12. And we end up with 44 as our perimeter. So that is our answer for number 5. Again, remember as we go through, if I'm going too fast, you can always pause it. You can always email me as well if you have any specific questions. All right.